Welcome. This is Professor Guerra Pujol from the University of Central Florida, and welcome again to a bonus video in this unit on contracts and fraud. As you know, it's Halloween, so happy Halloween. It's this season. And so I want to do a bonus video on vampires, which, vampires are considered in fiction, literary world as part of the undead along with the zombies. I'm actually showing you this book, on the law and economics of the undead, because I contributed a chapter to this book, chapter 12, called Buy or Bite. And in this chapter, I posit a theory of legal failure. I do this because economists often talk about market failure. Think of pollution, think of global warming, think of traffic congestion. There are situations where markets are unable to price certain activities, and then we get too much of that activity. Well, in my essay, I talk about legal failure, and this is when my own theory, when the law creates problems that could easily be addressed if we simply allowed maybe voluntary contracts and voluntary property arrangements. And so I extend this theory to the possibility, in keeping with Halloween, in keeping with the theme of zombies and vampires, I extend this theme to the vampire world. One of the things I notice in vampire literature is just how violent and dangerous this world is. Whether you're a vampire slayer or a vampire, there's a lot of violence going on. And that, to me, that's terrible, right? That I consider that a legal failure. How can we reduce the amount of violence? How can we reduce the incidence of violence? What is the ultimate cause of this violence? Are vampires just essentially terrible beings, terrible creatures? Are they evil? Well, it's one possibility, and I don't want to really go into that because I offer a different possibility. I think maybe the badness of vampire behavior has to do with legal failure. Our inability to legally recognize the legality of the purchase and sale of blood. And this sounds all crazy, but as you can see, I'm making a really important point that maybe you can even analogize to the lack of fully functioning, legal drug markets and that kind of thing in many parts of the world. I know some states, do allow the sale of, let's say, marijuana, but nothing beyond that. And even there, it's under a shroud of, a cloud of federal doubt, since marijuana is still considered an illegal substance under federal law. And so this question has always really interested me as a scholar. How can I help make the world better? How can we reduce violence? And I think really contracts is one way of doing that. Now, I'll provide you a link to my essay and also to a shorter blog post sort of describing the main elements of my essay. But I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say about this. What do you think? Is this taking it too far? Should we, should it be a lawful purpose to allow the purchase and sale of blood? Or as a matter of public policy, should those contracts be considered illegal? That's a really tough question, I'll be honest with you. And I can see, in fairness, arguments on both sides. Even in the context of marijuana, if you legalize marijuana and the price of marijuana goes down, presumably you might have more people smoking marijuana. And do you really want that? Even if you enjoy from time to time marijuana, really you shouldn't be smoking that much. You should try to, and I would even say you should try to cut it out altogether, right? It's not good for your health. But on the other hand, we have to compare the costs of criminalizing marijuana and then comparing, which is the worst situation, a world in which we criminalize certain activities and don't enforce those type of voluntary agreements, or a world in which we enforce voluntary agreements as long as they're truly voluntary, and even if it means those agreements may produce some bad spillover effects. So it's a real tough debate. I just wanted to throw it out there in the spirit of Halloween, have a little fun with this really difficult problem, and challenge you to think for yourself. In the meantime, get your copy of Economics of the Undead if you're into that kind of thing, or, like I said, I'll provide you completely free of charge my chapter. I believe it's only 10 or 12 pages. It's a very short chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Well, thank you very much for your attention, and take care. one last thing, because I think this is the hardest assignment of the semester, I'm going to keep the deadline open until October 27th. As I said, a Saturday before Halloween. So you have over a full week of time to think about these questions and to formulate a good response. All right, well, thoughtful response. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a great week, and of course, happy Halloween.